Well, here we are again, English 210, Listening Comprehension. I hope you're enjoying the course as we move from topic to topic. And as you can see, today's topic is home. Home is a big word. Home for one person is very different from home for another. It's where we feel that we are taken in and we're with our friends. Our home can be a house, it can be an apartment, it can be a tent. It all depends on our background. So today we're going to be discussing and dealing with some aspects of home. If you look at the sheet there, you see we'll hear a conversation about finding the right apartment. If you're away from home and you're looking for a place to live, it's sometimes very important to find the right place. And we'll be doing some exercises about that. And at the end of today's lecture, something special. You'll be getting your homework passages. In other words, today you'll be able to hear the material you'll need to do those homework exercises which you'll find on site. So let's get started today by looking at our materials, finding the right apartment. We see the introductory page here, something that happens sometimes when you're moving. You have to move the furniture. You have to be involved with getting your furniture out of the apartment and into a new one. And so we have some of the questions at the top of the page. What are the men in the picture doing? Of course, they're moving furniture, whether professionally or just helping their friends, we don't know. We would assume that somebody is moving in or moving out. Number two, how many times in your life have you moved? Well, this will vary. People here don't really move that much, I think, but in some parts of the world, especially young people, move very often. They move to college, and then they move to a new apartment, and so moving is something they do quite often. What were the reasons? Well, I can't tell you that. Some people move to get a better place, some because they changed their job, some because they're changing their status in life. Maybe they've newly become married and are moving in to their own house for the first time. And finally, is it common for young adults in your culture to live by themselves? Well, you'll have to answer that, but I think your answer will probably be no. Why or why not? Well, this is a question of culture. So let's move on now to our exercises. Let's move on to questions of language, things that are involved with language. We go to the next page, and here we see one of the characters in our conversation. This man standing in the door of a building, and we see the word vacancy, an important word for us from the adjective vacant, meaning empty. So if you come to a hotel or you come to a building and it says vacancy, it means that one of their rooms or one of their apartments is free and is not occupied. So we assume this man is the manager or the landlord of the building. Some terms we'll be talking about today. At the top they say, look at the photo, what is happening? Well, hard to say, but certainly this landlord or this manager is meeting someone, very likely a customer, someone who would like to move in to his building. What kind of place do you live in now? An apartment, a house, a student dormitory? Again, I can't answer that for you. All of those are possibilities. Now we move on to our vocabulary section. If you have the book, you have it in front of you. If you don't, I'll provide it here temporarily until we have the solutions. We look at our vocabulary items up above. Well, I think I'm just going to provide it. That's rather glossy. You can't see it that well, so let me just give you right away the page provided here. Let's look at our terms at the top. We have here nouns. I hope you can see the noun closet, fireplace, landlord, studio, vacancy. The verbs move, either to move in or move out. And then we also have raised. Adjectives furnished and unfurnished, and the adjective stressed out, and adverb pretty. Now your exercise here was to find the right word for each of these contexts. Some of you may have solved them. I have solved them here for you. Mr. Davis is the owner of the house where I live. He always helps me when something is broken in the kitchen or the bathroom. He is a very good, and the word that was supposed to be supplied, as you see here, is landlord. Please remember, landlord is the owner of the building. If it's someone who is managing the building for someone else who owns it, we call him then a building manager. We'll hear both of these terms in this unit. But landlord is a term that you need to know. Now, usually it is a man. You might be interested to know if it is a woman who owns your building, then it's a landlady. You can have a landlord or a landlady. In the second item, you read, don't leave your clothes and shoes in the living room. Put them in your, the word is closet. Please notice the pronunciation. The S is pronounced as a Z, closet, a small area for storing things, like a little room. The next item, I only need one room to live in because I'm alone and I don't have much money. So I'm going to rent a studio apartment. A word you probably know already, studio in a different sense, a place where they develop photographs or a place where they take pictures. But this is a different meaning of a studio, and it refers to a single, one-room apartment where you have the bedroom area, the kitchen area, the dining area, all open. So a one-room apartment is oftentimes called a studio or a studio apartment. Number 4, let's move up here a little bit. Jack has to buy a bed, a desk, a table, chairs, and some other things because his new apartment is furnished. Notice it's furnished. We'll be discussing this t ending, but it represents ed. Furnished meaning it has the furnishings, the furniture, the carpets, the curtains, all that is needed. Of course, if you buy it without those things, we say it's unfurnished. A word many of you will see if you travel in Saudi Arabia. There are a lot of furnished apartments where people stay when they travel to Riyadh or to Dammam, and they want a furnished apartment. Of course, they don't have the time to go and buy furniture for it. So furnished apartment, his new apartment is furnished. Everything is there. Number 5, my place is, and close to campus, and you see the solution here is, it is pretty close to campus. Pretty here meaning a qualifier, meaning not very much, not little. And it's the same as saying rather close or somewhat close. Pretty is more of an American and a colloquial term, but it's very common in speech. So pretty close to campus, it's only a 20-minute walk. Well, maybe that doesn't sound close to you, but to the writer of this book, he thought that was pretty close. I think many of you, 20-minute, you would think of driving. Number 6, after 2 years, the owner of the building I live in raised my rent from $850 to $950 a month. Raise, making higher. From the verb rise, to make something rise is to raise it. Raised my rent. Of course, you may think of moving out, and that's what we're going to hear in our conversation today. If your landlord raises your rent, you might think of moving out. Number 7, this hotel is full. It has no vacancy. The word we discussed earlier, meaning an empty room or empty apartment. We'll have to look for a room at another hotel, a vacancy. Number 8, I like to use my fireplace in winter. It makes my apartment very warm. Now, a fireplace is probably not a very common thing in a home here in Saudi Arabia, but in colder climates, it's nice to have an area where you can make a fire and you can sit during the cold time of the year. Something very pleasant during the winter in England or America or such cold places. Number 9, if you don't like your apartment, you can move out and find another place. Move out. If you find another place, you can move in. And finally, our last vocabulary is an adjective form from the verb to stress. Joanne has to study for 2 tests tomorrow. She also has to pick up her parents at the airport. That's why she feels stressed out. Stressed out, under pressure, very ill at ease, many terms we could use. Stressed out, again, a very common colloquial term when you feel that way. So these are terms that are important in our unit, and you're going to hear now a conversation. The conversation is in your book, but maybe it's a good idea now to just listen and see if you can hear the answers to these questions. Number 1, why is Beth stressed out? And 2, what does Beth learn from Ming that makes Beth feel better? So now listen to the conversation one time for general understanding. Then we'll look at some details, and then we'll look at the close work for this conversation. Are you ready? Beth and Ming. You may remember Beth and Ming are the 2 students, Ming from Chinese background, Beth an American student. Beth: I'm so stressed out. My landlord just raised my rent. I think I'll have to move. Ming: Really? You know, my building has some vacancies. It's a pretty nice place, and it's just 10 minutes from campus. Beth: Oh, yeah? How much is the rent for a studio? Ming: There are no studio apartments in our building. My neighbor just moved out of a 1-bedroom. He paid $850 a month, I think. Beth: That's not bad. Tell me more. Ming: Well, 1-bedrooms come with a bathroom, a kitchen, a fireplace in the living room, pretty big closets, and are you looking for a furnished or unfurnished place? Beth: Unfurnished. I have all my own stuff. What about parking and laundry? Ming: There's no garage. You have to park on the street, but there is a laundry room downstairs. Beth: I think I'm interested. Could you give me the address? Ming: Sure. It's 1213 Rose Avenue. The manager's name is Mr. Azizi. Call him up or just stop by and talk to him. Beth: Thanks, Ming. I'm going to do that tomorrow for sure. Now, here are 2 questions, types of questions you might later have on an exam or on your homework. Why is Beth stressed out? Now, if you're choosing answers and you were choosing, is it because she's hungry, she has an exam, you would say no. The reason is she has to move out of her apartment. Or you could say her landlord has raised the rent and she wants to move. So that is why she is stressed out. Number 2, what does Beth learn from Ming that makes Beth feel better? Well, she learns about a possibility, a 1-bedroom apartment where she might move. So those would be answers. Now, when you're tested on these things, you will hear the passage and then you'll choose the answer to such questions. Let's turn to the next page now and look at something a little more specific. These are more details of what was in the conversation. Listen again. Well, I'm not going to read it again. See if you remember. Write T if the statement is true, F it is false. If it is false, number 1, Ming's building is close to campus. What do you think from what you heard? She said that it's pretty close to campus, so we'd say that is true. Number 2, Ming's building has a parking garage. What was that? Oh, we heard, no, you have to park on the street, so that is false. Number 3, in Ming's building, a 1-bedroom apartment rented for $850 a month. And that's what we heard, and she said was quite happy about that, so that's true. Number 4, Beth needs an unfurnished apartment. Yes, she says she has a lot of her own stuff, so she wants to use it. She doesn't want to buy more, so that would be true. So most of these were true. Now, I'll tell you again, you're probably thinking of at the end of this course there'll be an exam. They won't be true and false questions. They'll be choosing answers, but sometimes it's good to do this type of exercise. Now, in this course, it's very important to know what you're hearing. You will have to choose and see what is missing in sentences. And so it's very nice for us to do these conversations, and they'll be used as a basis for testing. So let's see what was missing. I'm so stressed. So, S-O, not S-E-W. Again, you have to choose the correct one according to the meaning. There is an S-E-W, so, which is a verb in English, but no, it'd be S-O. I was so stressed out. My landlord just raised my rent. I think I'll have to move. Those are pretty simple things. Really? You know, my building has some vacancies, one of our vocabulary words, huh? It's a pretty nice place, and it's just 10 minutes from campus. Okay, you should notice it's not tin and it's not tan, it's the number 10. Oh yeah? How much is the rent for a studio? Again, one of our vocabulary words, a studio, a one-room apartment. Ming, there are no studio apartments in our building. My neighbor just moved out of a one-bedroom. Now here's an important thing to note. Let's look at that, moved out. We're going to be practicing the ED ending. Now you don't hear it a lot, but you know it has to be there because he just, it means it happened, it's finished. He moved out. You don't hear moved out, but you know it's past, and so if you're choosing move or moved out, you would choose the past tense here. Of a one-bedroom, he paid $850 a month, I think. Beth says, that's not bad. Tell me more. Again, B-A-D, not bed, not bid. Again, the context should help you to know that, even if you couldn't hear it exactly. Well, one-bedrooms come with a bathroom, a kitchen, a fireplace in the living room, pretty big closets, and are you looking for a furnished or unfurnished place? Now, bathroom, not difficult, living, but notice again with furnished. It's a T at the end for the ED ending, but again, you would know it has to be because this is an adjective from the verb to furnish, furnished or unfurnished. We're going to be talking about these ED markers in our pronunciation exercise after this. Then she goes on to say, unfurnished, I have all my own stuff. What about parking and laundry? So notice the use of own. This is to emphasize possession. I brought my car. I brought my own car, to emphasize mine and not someone else's. Huh? So an intensifier, O-W-N. And what about parking and laundry? Now, laundry is a tricky word in English. Laundry means the action of washing your clothes, but also the place where you do it. So here, about parking and laundry, some buildings, some apartment buildings have an area for doing laundry, a laundry room or a laundry area. If you don't have one, you may take your clothes to a laundry, meaning a business that does it. We had that word once before. Ming, there's no garage. You have to park on the street, but there is a laundry room upstairs. Okay, again, laundry room. A note about the word garage. A garage is a place where you keep a car or a truck or a vehicle. There is an alternative pronunciation, a garage. It can be pronounced either way. For those who are interested in the history of the language, we have borrowed a lot of words from French, such as garage. Of course, that's the French spelling, and then it becomes anglicized with a stress on the first part of the word, so we get garage. We have words like mirage. Maybe in 100 years it'll be mirage instead of mirage. But we have the alternative there with garage. She says, sure, it's 1213 Rose Avenue. The manager's name is Mr. Azizi. Call him up or just stop by and talk to him. Now, a very important grammar point here. Please notice that managers. Now, if you were choosing answers, you might have one with apostrophe S and one with just S. You must choose the apostrophe S because you should understand this is a possessive. Now, if you said, I saw many managers, then you would choose without because it would be plural. But here we have apostrophe S. Again, please be aware of that. Or just stop by and talk to him. Stop by, one of our vocabulary words, to visit for a short time. Thanks. I'm going to do that tomorrow for sure. Sure, S-U-R-E. So that would be about vocabulary and being able to supply it. Now, as I told you, we have a pronunciation exercise, a very important one, not only in this course, but for you who are learning English in general. In English, we many times have what are called markers. In English, the usual marker for the past tense and the past participle is ed. We always write ed if it's a regular verb, but the ed is not always pronounced the same way. Now, you have in your book a discussion of this, and we can look at this now at the top of the, we did this, we can look at the top of the page here on page 7. I'll go back to 6 later. The ed ending in past tense verbs. The ed ending is pronounced one of 3 ways, depending on the sound that comes before ed. Another way we could say that is the end of the base form. If we have the form move, the final sound of the base form is v. If our word is live, it's also v. But if our word would be, let's say, think, then the final sound is k. So that final sound determines the realization of the marker. If it comes after the dental fricatives T and D, then it's pronounced id, as you hear when you hear waited, invited, needed. That's easy because those are distinct. If we have an unvoiced sound, however, we have merely the sound t, so that after p, k, f, s, all of these unvoiced sounds, we get merely the t sound, as in miss, the past tense is missed. In the case of watch, watched. In the case of help, helped. You have to hear that. If you're doing, let's say, a dictation or you're listening, you have to identify that as a past tense by that marker at the end. After voice sounds, such as b, g, j, m, n, or all vowels, vowels are voice sounds, you will have the d sound, as in lived, showed, listened. Okay, so these are things you need to notice. Now, at the bottom of this page, we have an exercise. What we're doing, we take regular verbs, such as turn, we make them into the past tense, adding ed, turned, and then we choose. Is it d, t, or d? As you see, it is d. Now, let's do the following ones. I've not marked them, but I'll do it as we go along. We have rent, and the past is rented. And so rented, I hope you've chosen, the form would be id. So you would mark this one if you're doing an exercise like that, rented. The next word is the verb mix. Past tense with ed is pronounced mixed. Mixed. So you should know that this would be this one. T. The next one, ask. Again, k, unvoiced, so asked. Asked. So again, we're going to choose the same one, t. Recommend. Well, the past tense is recommended. We have a d sound. So therefore, we have again an id. Recommended, as in rented. D and t, dental fricatives, we're going to have that marked. Walk, walk, the final sound is k, so the past tense is walked, walked, so we mark t. Test, test, t. We have final t, remember t and d, so it's tested, id again, id. Number 8, follow, o, vowel, vowel ending. So, of course, we have d, because vowel, of course, is a voiced sound. So we have a voiced ending, followed. The same with the next one, move, v, voiced, moved. So we have d, we're going to mark the d, same. And how about change? Change, voiced or unvoiced? Voiced, change. So changed, changed, okay? So that's a nice exercise, being aware of these sounds. Now, in your book, they have a follow-up on this on page 58, page 89 in your book, where we see different activities. And the purpose of this exercise is to be aware, again, of endings, these ed endings, and how they are realized as a voiced d, as an unvoiced t, or as a vowel, the schwa, plus d, id. So we see the first picture, and we say that the movers moved the furniture. So we hear a d at the end. They carried the furniture, again, d. And we see that here we have our friend Jennifer, who watched. So again, notice the differing realizations. Moved, carried, watched. Then number 2, we see her on the phone. She called her parents. They asked her how she was, asked. And she described, again, she described how the movers handled the furniture. Number 3, we see her with the boxes in the apartment, and we say she looked, looked. Ed we write, but we hear t because of the k at the end. Then we have she decided to unpack the boxes. Decided, again, d, so we have id at the end. In number 4, she actually unpacked the dishes, packed t at the end because of k, simply of unvoiced dental at the end. Number 5, the dishes, she washed the dishes, but she dropped a cup. Both of them voiceless because drop, p, voiceless, wash, voiceless. Number 6, she does some other work. She dusted the room. Dusted, t at the end, so we have id. She sneezed, 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 okay, simply a d. Then she decided to paint, so she painted, again, id. Then she went outside and she worked in the garden. She planted some flowers, planted. Number 9, she ordered some food, and then she rested. This is meant to contrast the various endings. The important thing for you to do is to be able to identify these different endings. That is the importance. Now, our final exercise in this unit is on page 90, asking for information about apartments. Now, here at the side, we see an advertisement for an apartment. Beautiful apartment. Walk to campus. Call 555-2009 for more information. We have a grammar exercise and making questions about it. How much is the rent? How many rooms are there? Is the area noisy? Or you could ask also, how noisy is the area? Is there a stove or refrigerator? And then they say your own question. It could be how many people live in the house? How big is the living room? Any other question. We have another advertisement here at the bottom, 2-bedroom apartment, $1,500, of course, meaning per month. Good location, call 555-1828. Questions, area, where is it located? Lease, is there a lease? A lease is an agreement when you rent something. A garage, is there a garage? Number of bathrooms, how many bathrooms? Again, your own question could be, is the area noisy? Are there many children in the building? Questions of that sort. So that was our introduction to the topic home, some vocabulary, a very important exercise also in terms of pronunciation. I skipped over the reductions, but I'd like to go back to them now. Reductions are very important. You'll have some in the homework exercises that I'll be giving today. So let's look at these. These are on page 87. You remember now about reductions. In speech, we reduce forms. They give you some examples up there at the top. Please listen. This is how it sounds. Number one, I think I'll have to move. But notice, have to is realized with two words, have to. Number two, are you looking? Are you looking for a finished place? Are you is realized by are you. Number three, you have to park on the street. Have to. Again, have to is realized by have to. Could you give me the address? Gimme, give me. Call him up. Is him. Stop and talk to him. And talk is and talk to him. Him is him. I'm going to do that tomorrow. Gonna is going to. Now there are exercises at the bottom. Now if this were an exercise, you might hear, Mr. Azizi, I have to talk to you. Now, you have to choose what that have to represents. And of course you would choose have to. I have another problem. B, could you call me? Could you call me later? Could you call me is could you call me? I hope, I'm sorry, I hope, could you call me later? I'm busy now. She responds, no, I need the plumber again. Could you call him right now? Could you again? And call him, you have to recognize is him. You cannot write Of course, on the exam you'll be choosing whether it's him or them or some or, but you should realize from the context that reduction represents the personal pronoun object form him. B, I have a lot of things. A lotta is the form a lot of things to do. I'll call him tomorrow morning. Call him, again the same thing, possessive pronoun. No, I need him right now. Again, that possessive pronoun him. Are you having trouble? Are you having trouble with the toilet? Yes, look, just give me the plumber's phone number. I'll call him. Again, gimme for give me. And finally, all right, just give me a minute and I'll do it. Gimme. Now, the purpose here is for you to identify the reduced form and see what the full form is. You have to choose the correct full form. Now that ends our lecture number 9, which is the beginning of Unit 5. But as I promised you today, I'm going to be presenting your homework exercises. They will be available for you. I handed them in just this morning, so they'll be available to you. And these are the materials, the spoken materials you need to do these homework exercises. Now, homework exercise number 1 is a listening passage. When we say passage in language teaching, we mean either a stretch of written or spoken speech. Because this is listening, it's always spoken. It could be a conversation, could be a report. Actually, today it's a little story. I'm going to tell you a story about a trip to the beach. Now, when you listen to this, it might be a good idea to have a piece of paper aside to get down facts as you're listening. On your exam later, at the end of this semester, you'll also have a passage to listen to. You will also have a piece of paper where you can write notes while you're listening. Always you will hear it a second time. Let me tell you that right now, in testing for listening, you hear everything twice. One time to write or choose answer, another time to check your answer. So the notes will help, but you will have a chance to hear any passage a second time. Today, because this is homework, I will do it only once. You can listen to it once, twice, 3 times, as many times as you wish. But remember, when you are tested, you'll hear it one time, so probably take good notes to help you answer questions. All right, here is the passage about the camping trip. Okay, I just have to find my questions here so that I'll be able to do those immediately after I finish. Okay, here we are, ready to go. Here's the listening passage. Try to take good notes. A trip to the beach. Last week, Salah and his two brothers decided to go for a trip to the beach. The day was bright and sunny when they set off for Golden Bay. It was a 2-hour drive by car, and when they arrived at the beach, they ran to the water, left their street clothes, and jumped into the water in their swimming trunks. The hours passed. They passed quickly as they swam, sat on the rocks along the shore, and told stories about other trips they had taken. By afternoon, the weather changed. Clouds appeared, covered the sun, and a cool wind started to blow. So Salah and his brothers decided to go back to where they had started and decided to put their warmer clothing back on. What a surprise they had when they got there. Their car stood where they had left it, but where were their clothes? They shook their heads in wonder. Then the cry of a bird made them look up. It was a large white seagull, but it was carrying a red shirt in its beak. That was the shirt of Salah's little brother. When they looked more, they saw more of their clothing, some in trees, some on the rocks in the distance, but it was all torn and dirty. Apparently the gulls had fun too that day, snatching away clothing and tearing it up. So Salah and his brothers had to drive back home in their swimming trunks. Now that's a simple story. I hope you understood it. And now if you listened carefully, you should be able to choose the correct answers on your homework exercises for each of the following 10 items. So when you go to your homework, it looks like this. Just so you know what we're talking about, you'll see these different choices, and you have to choose the correct one. Let me leave these in front of you so you know what we're doing. For number 1, you hear the question, where did the boys spend their day? You have to choose shopping, studying, swimming, hiking, reading. Okay? And you'll do the same for the following 9 items. Number 2, what was the weather like in the morning? Again, what was the weather like in the morning? Number 3, how long did they need to reach their destination? Destination is where you're going. How long did they need to reach their destination? Number 4, what did Salah and his brothers do there? There meaning at their destination. What did Salah and his brothers do there? 5, what made them change their mind? Remember, they were busy, having a good time. What made them change their minds? What made them do something different? Number 6, what surprised them when they returned? Returned to the car, of course. What surprised them when they returned? Number 7, where did they see the red shirt? This is the red shirt of Salah's little brother. Where did they see the red shirt? 8, why did they leave their clothes behind? Meaning, why didn't they take them? Why did they leave their clothes behind? Number 9 is what's called an inference question. From the information, you should be able to guess the meaning. What is a seagull? What is a seagull? And finally, number 10, how did Salah and his brothers return home? So that's the material you need to do homework exercise number 1. I hope you'll enjoy it, and more important, I hope you'll learn from it, because this is how part of the final exam will be constructed. You hear a passage and you answer questions. The second homework question is not a passage. These are different individual exercises. The first one has to do with reductions. Remember, I told you we'd be doing more reductions today. When we do an exercise like this, I read a sentence, and then you have to identify the reduction. Number one. Okay, I'll put the sheet here so you see what we're doing once again. You see number one, you'll have 5 choices, and you hear, how are you doing? How are you doing? Now, the reduced part, as you, I'm sure, understands how are ya, and you have to decide whether that's how are they, how is it, how can they, how are you, or who are you. Huh? So you're choosing what that reduced form represents. You do the same for number 2. They want to go home. They want to go home. Number 3. Don't you know why you came? Don't you know why you came? 4. I have to go to the store soon. I have to go to the store soon. Number 5. Could you bring me a new cover for the table? Could you bring me a new cover for the table? So those are 5 examples of reductions. So please do those. And later, at a later lecture, I'll bring the solutions so we can go through them together. But please do this because it's good practice for you. In the next section, numbers 7, okay, again, here we see that was now through number 5. So now we come to number 6. And you see at the bottom of the page it said close items. Now, I hope you remember close means something's missing. You hear the sentence and something is missing, and you have to choose which one represents the missing part. So are you ready for number 6? Okay, where is number 6? Okay, here is number 6. What you hear is, so Ali, is this your first trip to Cairo? Number 7. And what's your impression so far? Number 8. But the weather isn't so good. 9. Yes, the food was pretty good. 10. Anyway, what was it that surprised you? Now, in each of those sentences, the missing part, you heard the missing part, and you must choose which of those, A, B, C, D, or E, represents the missing part. All right, now we come to the final part of this. The final part is vocabulary. Now, we have a lot of vocabulary, I think interesting vocabulary, in our unit. I see here's where vocabulary begins. Well, it goes on like this. You have choices, for your vocabulary. Let me help you here by putting this one together. I hope you see that. For number 2, we have A, B, C, D, and E. Now, what happens in this case is I give you a definition. You have to choose the word that represents it. Number 11, you have A, B, C, D, a measure of energy in food. A measure of energy in food. You have to choose which of those. Number 12, directions for making a particular food. Directions for making a particular food. 13, place to have dirty clothes washed. Place to have dirty clothes washed. 14, spending the night out in nature. Spending the night out in nature. 15, a measure of how hot something is, a measure of temperature. Again, number 15, a measure of how hot something is, a measure of temperature. Now those homework assignments are on the course site. You can access them and use them to do them. We expect you to do them. It's part of the course, and then we'll check them after a later lecture. So please do them as soon as you can so you can benefit from doing them. Well, that's all for today. That was a double shot today. We had both the first part of the unit plus your homework exercises. So I don't doubt that's probably enough for you for today. So thank you very much.